The night Daniel Reeves almost changed his life, he was running 13 minutes late and still had macaroni under his fingernails. It was a Tuesday. Cold the way Boston gets cold in November. Not dramatic, not stormy, just the kind of cold that gets into your collar and stays there like it paid rent. Daniel had spent the first part of his evening helping his 6-year-old daughter Lily glue dried pasta to a piece of cardboard for a school project that was due the next morning. She had insisted the macaroni needed to be in the shape of a dog. He had agreed. He had then spent 40 minutes learning that neither of them knew what a dog looked like when made out of pasta. He kissed her on the forehead when the babysitter arrived. Lily grabbed his wrist. "Daddy, the dog doesn't have a tail. We'll fix it tomorrow. But it looks sad. Dogs without tails are still happy," he said. "Ask a Rottweiler." She let go. He left. He smelled like glue and pasta water and the particular exhaustion of a man who had spent an 8-hour shift driving strangers around Boston and then come home to a second shift that paid nothing but was somehow the better job. He pulled out of the driveway at 11:34 p.m. The app was already pinging him. Daniel had been doing rideshare for 4 years. Before that, he'd driven delivery trucks. Before that, he'd been a general contractor who worked for a company that went under in 2019 and took 2 years of his savings with it. Before that, he'd been married. He didn't talk about that last part. Not to passengers, not to co-workers, not really to himself. It wasn't dramatic, no screaming, no betrayal, just two people who had been slowly becoming strangers in the same house until one day they looked at each other and said, quietly, honestly, that they should probably stop. The divorce was mutual and civil, and it still took something out of him that he hadn't quite figured out how to name. He got Lily on weekdays and every other weekend. He'd gotten good at packing her lunch. He'd gotten good at plaiting her hair, which had taken him the better part of 6 months, and 3 YouTube tutorials. He'd gotten good at all the small survival things that used to get done by someone else, and now got done by him. He drove because the hours were flexible, and flexibility was the only currency that actually mattered when you were a single parent. He'd gotten his first aid certification the same year his marriage ended. His sister had asked why. He'd said he wanted to be prepared for things. She'd looked at him for a long time after that. She didn't press. The app gave him the pickup address at 11:39 p.m. Marlborough Street. He didn't need the neighborhood name. Marlborough Street told him everything. That stretch of Back Bay where the brownstones have original ironwork on the fences and the front doors are painted colors that have names like Prussian blue and raw linen instead of just blue and beige. Where the flower pots are empty in November but you can tell in spring they would be the kind of impressive that takes a gardener. He'd driven out of that street before. Usually it was someone going to the airport at 5 a.m. with luggage that cost more than his car. The name on the ride was Cecelia Okafor-Vance. He noted it, confirmed the address, put the car in drive. He wasn't thinking about her. He was thinking about whether Lily's dog project would affect her grade and whether he had enough coffee at home for the morning. He saw her before he pulled up fully to the curb. She was standing outside one of the brownstones, not on the steps, not under the small portico, but on the actual sidewalk, like she had walked out the front door and then kept walking until something had stopped her and she'd forgotten what that thing was. She was dressed for somewhere formal. Long dress, dark green, the kind that looks like money without trying to look like money. Her heels were in her hand. Both of them. She was standing in November on a Boston sidewalk in bare feet and had not seemed to notice. Daniel pulled to the curb. He sat in the car for 2 seconds. Something was wrong. He had driven enough people at enough hours to understand the grammar of a person standing outside. Waiting people check their phones. Tired people lean. Drunk people sway. People who are done with a party stand with their shoulders dropped but their faces loose. This woman was standing like all the signals in her body had gotten crossed and were running simultaneously in no particular direction. Her jaw was too tight. Her eyes were open but they weren't landing on anything. Her chest was moving in short, strange intervals. He got out of the car. He was absolutely not supposed to get out of the car. Company policy, personal habit, common sense, all of it said, stay in the car, wait for them to get in, keep the interaction minimal. He knew this. He got out anyway. Miss Okafor-Vance. She turned her head, looked at him. The look went through him like he was made of glass. And then her legs went. Not a collapse. Not a faint like the movies show. The slow, graceful crumple. The hand going to the forehead. Her legs simply decided they were done, and the rest of her followed, and Daniel was already moving, had already covered the 5 feet of sidewalk between them without deciding to, and caught her with his shoulder first, and then his whole body weight against hers, both of them going half down to the pavement before he got his feet under them. He held her. She was not unconscious. Not yet. Her eyes were still open, and she was making a sound, small, strained, a sound that wasn't panic, because it was too quiet for panic. It was the sound of something trying to happen that wasn't happening. He recognized it. He looked at her throat, at the flush spreading up her neck, the way her lips had started to pale at the edges and go slightly blue at the center. He looked at her hands, which were swelling at the knuckles. His brain ran a calculation, not a slow calculation, not a dramatic one. The kind of fast, quiet math your body does when something is actually happening and there's no time to be scared of it yet. He already had his phone out. 911, what is your emergency? Anaphylaxis, he said, female, maybe late 20s, on the sidewalk. Throat is closing. I need the address. I'm on Marlborough Street, Back Bay. I'm in front of. He looked up at the brownstone number, said it, clearly, twice. Sir, is the patient conscious? Yes, barely. He was lowering her to the ground as he said it, controlling her descent, keeping her head up. I don't have an EpiPen. Does she have one in a bag? Do you have a bag? He looked. She didn't have a bag. She had her heels and her phone, which had fallen to the pavement when she went down. Sir, paramedics are on the way. Estimated 8 minutes. 8 minutes. He put the phone on speaker, set it on the sidewalk. Listen to me, he said, not to the dispatcher, to her, not loudly, not in the voice of someone performing calm for an audience, just low and direct and meant for her. I know you can hear me. I need you to stay with me. We have 8 minutes. I'm going to help you through 8 minutes. That's all. Just 8 minutes. Her eyes moved to his face. Good, she was still there. Can you try to breathe slowly? I know it feels tight. I know. Try with me. She tried. The tightness in her throat got worse. He watched her chest labor. Watched the color in her lips go further. The dispatcher was saying something. He registered it and set it aside. He'd already done the math again. The ambulance was 8 minutes out. 8 minutes with someone in anaphylaxis and no epinephrine is a particular kind of problem. He kept talking to her. He talked the way he talked to Lily during bad dreams. Not stories, not reassurances, just words, steady and present and without any gap in them, because the gap is where the fear gets in. He told her about the pasta dog. He told her it didn't have a tail. He told her Lily had been deeply concerned about this. At some point she stopped being able to maintain her breathing. At some point her eyes closed. The doorman of the building had come outside by then. He saw what was happening. He looked at Daniel. He said, "Is she? Call the gate and make sure the ambulance can get through," Daniel said. The doorman went. Daniel tilted her head back, checked her airway. The classical position, the one from the certification class he'd taken in a church basement in Dorchester, with 17 other people and an instructor who kept apologizing for the mannequin's condition. He performed rescue breathing. 2 breaths, check. 2 breaths, check. The doorman came back outside and looked away. The ambulance arrived at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The paramedics came in fast and took over with the efficiency of people for whom this is Tuesday. They got a line in. They got the epinephrine in. One of them looked at Daniel and said, "You her husband?" "Her driver," he said. The paramedic nodded, like this explained everything and nothing simultaneously. They loaded her. The ambulance left. Daniel stood on the sidewalk on Marlborough Street in November. His hands were steadier than he would have expected. His brain was doing the thing it does after something happens, the slow, dawning arrival of the feeling that was too busy to come during. He stood there for about a minute. He picked up his phone. He picked up her heels from where they'd fallen on the pavement. He stood holding them for a moment, these expensive shoes belonging to a woman whose face he'd barely seen, and then he looked around for somewhere to put them, and there wasn't anywhere useful, so he set them neatly against the base of the brownstone steps. Toes out, the way you'd set them if you wanted someone to be able to find them. He got back in his car. He sat there, he didn't move for 3 full minutes. Then he put it in drive and went home. He paid the babysitter $20 extra, because it was late. He ate cold macaroni standing over the kitchen sink, which had been his dinner plan since 6 p.m., and had never felt less like a plan. Lily shuffled out in her socks at some point, which she was absolutely not supposed to do. "Daddy, you smell weird. Long ride. Did someone throw up in your car?" "No. Did you?" "Lily, go to bed." She went. She paused in the hallway. "Dad, is the dog going to be okay?" He looked at her. It took him a second. "The pasta dog." "Yes, the pasta dog is going to be fine," he said. "I promise." She seemed satisfied with this. She went back to her room. He stood in the kitchen for a while after that. He had just kept someone alive and had not told his daughter, and the thing he had promised to take care of was a school project made of dried noodles. He stood in the kitchen and thought about that for a moment, the strange geography of a life, where the enormous things and the tiny things exist in the same 24 hours, without any acknowledgement of the disparity between them. He rinsed his bowl. He went to bed. He didn't sleep well. Cecelia Okafor-Vance woke up in a private room at Massachusetts General Hospital the next morning. She woke up with the particular clarity of someone who has been close to a bad thing and come back from it, the kind of clarity that makes the ceiling look extremely significant, and makes you notice how good it is to inhale without it being a problem. A nurse came in. Her assistant came in shortly after, which told her something about how long she'd been unconscious. Long enough for word to travel, short enough that the media hadn't arrived yet. She lay there and sorted through what she remembered. The gala, the food, the tightening, the sidewalk. The cold. A voice. She remembered the voice very clearly. Low and direct, and talking to her without performing at her, without the particular brand of helpful person energy that is really just another kind of panic in disguise. A voice that was steadying itself so she could hold on to it. And something about a pasta dog. She was reasonably certain that had been real and not a hallucination. She looked at her assistant. "I need the ride record from last night," she said. Her voice was hoarse and smaller than she wanted it to be. "Cecelia, maybe. I need the ride record," she said. Not loudly. Firmly. The way she had learned to be firm from a father who used to say that volume is the tool of the uncertain. Her father had been dead for 3 years. She pushed that away. She was good at pushing things away. It was the skill she'd gotten in exchange for everything else. Her assistant pulled out his phone. Cecelia Okafor-Vance, at 29, was something of a known quantity in Boston, which she found mostly exhausting and occasionally useful. Her father, Edmund Vance, had built Vance Capital from a small family fund into one of the more significant private equity operations in New England. He had been brilliant in the particular way that brilliant people are, asymmetrically, extraordinary at the thing he did, considerably less extraordinary at everything outside it. He had loved his daughter in the way some fathers love their daughters, fully, imperfectly, and mostly from a distance. He had left her everything when he died. Everything included the company, the foundation, 2 properties, a collection of objectively terrible modern art that she hadn't had the heart to sell, and the considerable social weight of being Edmund Vance's only child in a city that had watched Edmund Vance become Edmund Vance. She had kept the company. She had restructured the foundation. She had sold exactly one piece of the modern art, the one that looked like a construction accident, and put the money into the foundation's education fund. She had not sold the rest, because some mornings she would walk through the living room and look at the paintings and feel, briefly, her father looking back at her. She knew this was not rational. She kept the paintings anyway. None of this was in her Wikipedia entry. Her Wikipedia entry said things like philanthropist and private equity executive, and known for her work in early childhood literacy initiatives, which were all accurate in the way that floor plans are accurate, technically true, and completely missing what it feels like to be inside. What it felt like to be Cecelia Okafor-Vance was, most of the time, like being responsible for an enormous amount and grateful for an enormous amount and exhausted by both in equal measure. She had a nutritionist. Her nutritionist had failed to communicate that the past appetizers at the gala would contain shellfish, which she was severely allergic to, which was information that had been on the intake form, which presumably someone had not read. She was not angry about this. She was too tired to be angry about it. She filed it and moved on, which was another thing her father had taught her by example. She got the ride record. She got the driver's name, Daniel Reeves, 34 years old, 4 years on the platform, rating of 4.97, which told her something. That's not a careful driver's rating. That's a person who actually talks to people. She asked her assistant to find a way to reach him. Her assistant was very good at finding ways to reach people. Daniel found out he was being looked for on a Friday. His dispatcher called him in the morning and said, with the particular careful tone of someone who is not sure how a piece of information is going to land, that a woman wanted to speak with him. What woman? A pause. The woman from Marlborough Street. He sat with his coffee. She's alive, he said. Very much, the dispatcher said. She'd like to talk to you. He said he'd think about it. He drove his route. He picked up Lily from school. Lily had gotten an A- on the pasta dog project, which the teacher had apparently described as creative and unexpected, which Daniel took as a diplomatic way of saying it looked like a dog having a difficult year. Lily was thrilled. She spent the car ride home explaining to Daniel that the dog's lack of tail had actually been, in retrospect, a stylistic choice. He thought about the call. He called his sister, who he called when he needed to think out loud, at someone who would not let him off the hook. A billionaire wants to talk to you, she said. She's not a billionaire. The company might be worth. She's calling it however I want to call it, his sister said. Take the call. I don't want it to be. Take the call, Daniel. He took the call. Cecelia Okafor-Vance called him herself. He'd half expected an assistant. Maybe a lawyer. Something with the formal weight of the kind of people who have other people make their calls for them. It was her, Mr. Reeves, Ms. Okafor-Vance. A pause. I wanted to thank you, she said. In person, not on the phone. I know that's a strange thing to request of someone you've never met. I know you did something significant for me on Tuesday night, and I wanted to be somewhere in the same room as you when I said what I needed to say. He didn't know what to do with that. It was an unusually direct thing to say. He was used to people talking around things. You don't have to do that, he said. I know I don't have to. I want to. He thought for a moment. All right, he said. She came to the rideshare dispatch office. No assistant, no security that he could see, though he found out later there had been someone in a car across the street, a compromise she'd made to her security team, who had not been pleased about any of this. She came in wearing a coat that made the fluorescent lighting look like it should apologize, which was not a thought Daniel had expected to have in his place of work on a Thursday afternoon. He came through the door from the back expecting a complaint or a form to fill out. He found her standing at the counter with her hands clasped in front of her, and her shoulders in that position he'd noticed on the sidewalk. The position of someone who has practiced taking up a precise, careful amount of space. She looked at him. He stopped walking. She said, I wanted to say thank you in a way that required me to be in the same room as you. He stood in the doorway of the dispatch office and looked back at her and didn't say anything for what his coworker Thomas later described as way too long, and his coworker Rita described as about 4 seconds, and his coworker Mike described as honestly kind of cinematic. What Daniel was actually thinking was this. She looked entirely different than he'd expected. He wasn't sure what he'd expected. The Marlborough Street brownstone, the formal gown, the general shape of the story. He'd assembled some mental image of a person who went with those things. She didn't look like that image. She looked like a real person, tired at the edges, watching him with the same quality of attention she'd probably used on every important thing in her life. He said, You didn't have to come here. I know, she said. Another pause. You talked to me about a pasta dog, she said. He looked at her for a moment. My daughter's school project, he said. A dog made of pasta. It didn't have a tail, She nodded slowly, like this confirmed something important. "I wasn't sure if I'd imagined that," she said. "You didn't." Something shifted in her face, small. The kind of shift that happens when you've been holding something tightly and the grip loosens just slightly. "Thank you," she said, "for the rescue breathing, for calling 911, for the pasta dog." The pasta dog part was less intentional, he said. "Still," she said. His co-worker Thomas told his girlfriend that night. His girlfriend had 42,000 Instagram followers and a genuine talent for making small moments feel like they contained something larger than they actually did, and she posted about it that evening in a way that was technically vague but emotionally precise. By Thursday morning, the story had been picked up by the Globe's lifestyle section. By Friday, Daniel Reeves was the name in the headline. He hated this. He hated this completely and specifically, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that made him do anything about it, just in the quiet, practical way of a man who had not asked for his life to become a thing people had opinions about. He drove his routes. He dropped Lily at school. He declined 7 interview requests and then accepted one, a local radio segment, 5 minutes, because the producer was very persistent and his sister told him it would look worse to keep saying no. The radio host was a man named Greg, who clearly wanted the story to be romantic and was visibly disappointed each time Daniel failed to deliver that. "So you held her," Greg said. "You were alone with her on the sidewalk. The doorman came out, but before that, just the two of you." "Yes. And you were, I mean, it must have been, I did the thing you do when someone is having anaphylaxis," Daniel said. "First aid. I took the class in Dorchester, at St. Anthony's. I think more drivers should take it. That's actually the thing I'd want people to know about this." Greg tried twice more to make it romantic. Daniel talked about the certification class both times. Greg wrapped the segment with visible sadness. The story spread anyway. It spread because the story that people decided to tell about it was, frankly, more interesting than Daniel's version. His version was a man with a first aid certification who got out of the car at the right moment. The city's version involved a single father, a barefoot heiress, a November sidewalk, and the particular electricity of 2 people from different worlds being thrown into the same terrible moment. Boston, which is a city with very strong opinions about class and a complicated relationship with its own mythology, loved this story unreasonably. There were op-eds. Not many, but some. A local news crew came and filmed the outside of the dispatch office, which Daniel thought was genuinely one of the stranger things that had happened to him. Lily saw a clip of it on her friend's mom's phone at pickup and told Daniel she'd seen him on the internet. "How do you feel about that?" he asked. She considered this seriously. Did the dog get on TV? The pasta dog did not make the news. She seemed to feel this was an injustice. Cecelia, meanwhile, was doing what Cecelia did with most things, moving forward and leaving as little of herself available to it as possible. She dealt with the nutritionist situation through her HR person. She dealt with the media through one statement, written by her communications team, that said something about gratitude and community and said nothing at all about Daniel Reeves by name, which she had insisted on. She did not want his name in her statement. She didn't think he would want that. She was right. He wouldn't have. She sat in her office 2 weeks after the hospital and looked at the radio segment transcript her assistant had pulled for her. She read it twice, read the part about the first aid certification class in Dorchester 3 times. She had a foundation. The foundation funded, among other things, community health programs. She also knew, from her own work, that bystander intervention training, CPR, first aid, anaphylaxis response, was chronically underfunded in working-class communities. That the people statistically most likely to witness a medical emergency in public were also the people statistically least likely to have had any formal training in responding to one. She sat with this for about a week. Then she called Daniel. Again. Herself. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Reeves." A pause. Shorter this time. "You can call me Daniel," he said. "Daniel, I have a question for you, and I want you to know before I ask it that this is not an attempt to compensate you or pay you back. This is not that." "All right," he said. The radio segment. You said more drivers should have first aid certification. Yes. Did you mean that? Or were you trying to redirect Greg? A pause. He almost laughed. Both, he said. I thought so. A beat. I want to fund a program. Bystander intervention training, first aid, CPR, anaphylaxis response, in communities with low access to that training, partnered with rideshare drivers, delivery workers, anyone who spends extended time in public. I want your name on it. Not for the story, because you know what the gap looks like from the inside, and I don't. He sat with his phone. He looked at the wall of his kitchen. It was a perfectly ordinary wall, slightly dinged near the light switch from where Lily had crashed her scooter into it 9 months ago, which she had denied and he had never pressed her on. You want my name on a program, he said. I want you to help design it. Your name is part of that. Yes, I'm a driver. You're a driver who kept me alive on a Tuesday night in November, she said. I'm not trying to make you into something you're not. I'm asking you to do something you're already doing, with more resources behind it. He was quiet for long enough that she said, You don't have to decide now. I know, he said. I need to talk to my daughter. A pause. The pasta dog's owner. Yes, of course, she said. He asked Lily that night. Not the full thing. He translated it into 6-year-old. Lily, if your name was on something that helped people, how would you feel about that? Lily stopped eating her noodles, regular noodles this time, no artistic purpose, and thought about this with the seriousness she gave to all big questions. Like a plaque, she said. Something like that. She thought harder. Would it be outside? Because plaques get rained on. He looked at his daughter. He thought about all the things he had not known how to do 4 years ago. The hair, the lunches, the pasta dogs without tails, the particular skill of being the one person who shows up for every single thing, not because someone is watching, not because there is applause, just because that is what the situation requires. I think it would be inside, he said. Lily nodded, returned to her noodles. Okay then, she said. He called Cecelia the next morning. He said yes. He did not tell her about the plaque concern. He would tell her eventually. That was the part that came later, the part that came after the program was built, after the first certification class ran in Dorchester with 42 participants, after the local news covered it with considerably more interest than they'd given the dispatch office exterior footage, after Daniel had shown up to the launch wearing the only blazer he owned, and Lily had told him he looked like a substitute teacher, which he had taken in good spirits. The part that came later was slower and quieter than the headline. It was the kind of thing that doesn't make a good one-paragraph summary. Two people who had been introduced by the worst and most clarifying night of one of their lives, who kept talking afterward because they found that they had things to say, who disagreed about several things and agreed about more things than either of them expected, who came from places so structurally different that their friendship, and it was a friendship, for a long time and without any drama, a plain and real friendship, had a particular quality of genuinely meaning something to both of them, because it was not the kind of connection that would have existed through any ordinary channel. It existed because he got out of the car. He was not supposed to get out of the car. Company policy, personal habit, everything said stay, wait, keep it minimal. He got out anyway. He would get asked, in the months after the story ran, what had made him do it. Interviewers, people at the certification program, his sister, eventually Cecelia herself. He thought about it seriously every time. I don't know, he said, which was the most accurate answer. She was standing wrong, and I'd had the training, and there was nobody else. What he didn't say, because it was harder to say, was that there was also something in him, some version of himself, that had spent 4 years being prepared for things without knowing what the things would be, that was ready, not confident, not fearless, just ready. The way you get ready when you have a child who depends on you and you have decided, quietly and without announcement, that you will not be the person who doesn't know what to do. He told his sister this, once, late on a phone call when Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet. His sister was quiet for a moment. That's a good thing to be, she said. What? The person who knows what to do. He thought about the certification class, about the instructor who kept apologizing for the mannequin, about the 17 other people in that church basement who had all, presumably, been trying to become the person who knows what to do. "It's not hard to learn," he said. "Then more people should," she said. He agreed. That was, more or less, the point. The pasta dog got repaired the weekend after the gala story broke. Lily had remembered, finally, that it needed a tail. She fashioned one out of a single piece of rigatoni, which she declared was a curly tail like a pig's but for a dog. Daniel hot-glued it on. They put the dog on the kitchen windowsill, where it sat for the rest of the year, and then moved to Lily's shelf when she decided it was important enough to keep in her room. It was not a beautiful pasta dog. It listed slightly to the left. Its tail was a pasta shape that dogs don't have. One of its legs was shorter than the others because they'd run out of a matching piece and substituted something close. It looked like something made by someone who tried very hard with what they had. Lily thought it was perfect. Daniel thought she was probably right. This story is based on a composite of documented bystander rescue accounts and verified community intervention programs in the Boston area. Some details have been changed.